to the day, but as I said, where we do have that northerly wind across parts of Scotland, that's where it's going to feel quite cool through much of the day. Temperatures not climbing much higher than 13 degrees in Aberdeen by lunchtime, even 11 degrees to start the day, so there'll be little change from the morning into the afternoon. A brighter day though for Northern Ireland, western areas of Scotland. Cloud though thickening across parts of North Wales into the Midlands and across many southern areas. The cloud will start to build into the afternoon, but it should stay dry through much of the day across many southern areas. So here, that's where we'll see the the highest temperatures, the warm sunshine still pushing through across parts of the south into Wimbledon as well. It should be another dry day on Thursday, and there will be more in the way of sunshine for Northern Ireland, western Scotland as well. Despite that northerly wind, temperatures still climbing to the mid-teens, possibly the higher teens for some parts of the central belt by Thursday afternoon. Looking ahead to Friday, we do see a risk of showery rain pushing up from the south and east, threatening the south coast. Further north, though, it will be a much drier day, but still a northerly wind means temperatures will be a little below par, but not feeling too bad in the sunshine where you do see it. And it does look a little bit drier into the start of the weekend. A risk of showers, though, developing later on in the weekend, but temperatures climbing to around 23 by...
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Phil was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox. I just looked at my account and thought, oh my God, yeah, it's true, it's gone into my account. And if I can win it, anybody can win it.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister. Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday,
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true.
You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lifted to hospital. Also tonight,
I find some of the commentary coming out of the Home Office inexplicable.
You think of the dream to send refugees to Rwanda, for example?
Yes.
believe it or not, this is the man who could be the new head of Keir Starmer's Border Command, and
we're setting up a major new approach to law enforcement against the criminal gangs who are undermining our border security and putting lives at risk.
Is Labour about to sign us up to an EU illegal migrant quota? Plus,
I will not apologise for fighting for a society that knows what a woman is.
Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman have just gone to war. Also,
No, I'm not interested in what colour rosettes, in government next year.
Well, have striking junior doctors now exposed themselves as little more than political activists? Plus,
majority of people that I've met in England that are English, no, not all of them, obviously, you can't speak for everyone ever, but there's a good proportion of them that are just horrible people.
If so many young people hate Britain, why don't they just leave? Also,
I take this oath under protest and in the hope that one day my fellow citizens will democratically decide to live in a republic.
bore off, Clive Lewis, you little attention seeker, and
most importantly, the county must oppose mask bans for any reason. They do not keep us safer.
is that the most hysterical mask wearer you've ever seen? On my panel tonight is the director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got political guru at The Spectator, James Heal, and author Rebecca Reid. Oh, and can you tell me what happens next here?
Mr. Pancake, you're under arrest. Don't move. Get on the belly. Get on the belly. Do it now.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Bring in the juggler and fire someone out of a cannon because the Tory circus is in town. Next.
The top stories from the GB newsroom tonight. The chief suspect in a triple murder in Hertfordshire was located by police this afternoon following an extensive manhunt. Hertfordshire police were searching for 26-year-old Kyle Clifford, and they surrounded a cemetery in North London. Paramedics and air ambulance, as well as forensics teams, were on the scene. It's understood the three murdered women in Hertfordshire, aged 25, 28 and 61, were the wife and two daughters of BBC racing commentator John Hunt. The force said this evening the suspect is receiving medical treatment, having been found in Enfield in North London with injuries. Police have confirmed no shots were fired. Residents who live close to the murder scene, some 30 minutes away, described the incident as tragic and disturbing.
Because this is such, as everyone is saying, such a quiet area, such a safe place where there's never been any sort of cause for concern. Now, for something so heinous to have happened in such close proximity to all of us, we're all very on edge.
Never seen so many police in my life. Crazy, absolutely crazy.
The deaths of three ladies in the same household is incredibly regrettable, and it's very shocking and scaring for local people.
Now, in other news today, Sir Keir Starmer has said he wants to use the NATO summit in Washington to reset relations with world leaders, as well as sending a message to Russia's President Putin. The summit marks Sir Keir's debut on the world stage as Prime Minister, less than a week after his landslide election victory, which installed him in number 10. He's due to hold detailed talks with Joe Biden at the White House later on this evening. Meanwhile, the actor George Clooney has today urged Joe Biden to step down as the Democratic nominee for president. George Clooney, who co-hosted a huge Hollywood fundraiser for the president just last month, gathering a record $28 million, appears to have changed his mind after Biden's disastrous performance in the first presidential TV debate against Donald Trump. Now, news here at home, a second man has been arrested as part of an investigation into a small boat people smuggling network. The National Crime Agency says the 25-year-old Iraqi national was apprehended this morning at an address in Preston in Lancashire. He was detained on suspicion of facilitating illegal migration and obtaining leave to remain in the UK by deception. It follows the arrest of an Iranian national in Preston in May. and England are level. It's 1-1 against the Netherlands in the Euros of the semi-final in Germany. The second half has just kicked off. Let's show you this special moment from a short time ago. If you're listening on radio, that's the sound of the fan zone in South London erupting into cheers as Harry Kane equalised for England with a cool penalty kick. There's a huge turnout at fan parks across the country as they root for the Three Lions, including a little bit more subdued now as they are in South London. The winner of tonight's match facing Spain in the final on Sunday, England expects. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Polly Middlehurst. I'm back in an hour. See you then.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
The Conservative Party is having the kind of day at the Battle of the Somme where everyone died and nobody gained any ground. Kemi Badenoch took a machine gun to Rishi Sunak's shadow cabinet yesterday, ripping into Sunak over his election blunders, in particular his decision to leave D-Day commemorations early. The Shadow Housing Secretary, who is seen as a frontrunner now for the Tory leadership contest, said that colleagues like Penny Mordaunt would still be MPs today if he had stayed in France for longer. She also said that Suella Braverman appeared to be having a very public nervous breakdown. And finally, she emphasised that shadow cabinet discussions should not be leaked. Well, that went well, didn't it? Now Suella Braverman has hit back, tweeting, "I'd be interested in knowing whether Kemi thinks I am having a very public nervous breakdown. Hashtag honesty, hashtag unity, hashtag we don't leak." And today, this is what she told GB News exclusively about her vision for the party.
We must change and adapt or die. That's what this is about, because we have no God-given entitlement to people's votes and people's support. There's too many in my party who are still complacent. They think that reform is a fad. There'll be a busted flush in a few years' time. People will come back to us as Labour fails on some of these policies, and we can sit back and just wait. I'm not in that camp. This is a crisis for our party.
Braverman's view is perhaps to be expected, given that almost half of Tory voters want them to merge with Reform. But now Richard Tice has ruled out a merger with the Tories, so they'll have to wallow in their own mess for a bit longer, won't they? Yesterday, they had the chance to elect the new chairman of the Backbench 1922 committee, who will decide how the next Tory leader is chosen. That went down about as badly as a giggle at a funeral.
Text here from the Whip's office yesterday saying the polls would be open from 5 to 6. I got there at 5:45 and I was told the polls had closed because someone had sent out a WhatsApp message about an hour earlier saying, no, the polls are closing at 5:30. I saw Bob Blackman earlier this evening and I said, you must rerun this. There were 23 out of 121 Tory MPs who didn't vote.
All right, so here's the latest opinion polls on who Tory members want as their next leader. Yeah, we can see them on the screen there. Kemi Badenoch is very much top. We've got Suella Braverman on 16%, Tom Tugendhat, Jeremy Hunt, James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick, Priti Patel and Victoria Atkins bringing up the rear. But Andrew Mitchell, who essentially used to stand in for David Cameron as Foreign Secretary, wants them to wait until at least October and the Tory party conference until they decide.
Well, they can put the names out now, but the critical thing is the party conference, so that the whole party can have a good look at them.
Right, OK, fine. But in the meantime, we could have Labour announcing a new budget, a new foreign policy, a new immigration policy, a new relationship with the EU, votes for 16-year-olds and goodness knows what else. As it stands, we have an elected dictatorship, and that is bad for Britain. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. I'm joined by the director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. I've got the political correspondent at The Spectator, James Heal, and author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, Mark, I'll start with you on this. Have we got an elected dictatorship? Do the Tories not need to get their backs out and get sharpish?
Well, we don't have an elected dictatorship. We have a government with a landslide majority. And look, it's going to be very difficult for the Conservatives to hold them to account until the Tories get their own house in order. And I can understand, Patrick, why your viewers might be impatient with the party taking some time to do that. But they should take some time to do that. If there was a snap leadership election now, I don't know, the MPs whittling it down to the top 2 in the next 72 hours and then the members voting in the next 3 weeks, all of those decisions are likely to be made in the context of anger and bitterness. Far better to take a few months, get the right decision.
Fine, but in that few months' time, James, we could have, as I've just rattled off there, you know, a Labour budget potentially, a brand new immigration scheme, a brand new foreign policy, votes for 16-year-olds, all sorts of stuff with no opposition.
Quite, but also I think this is balancing up the medium and long-term needs of the party as well as the kind of short-term one. I think that, look, the key thing that everyone needs to have is a bit of competence. I think, you know, yesterday what happened with the Bob Blackman package, we'll talk about with Mark Francois in terms of, you know, the kind of thing that went on there is exactly the kind of things they don't need right now. What it's really about is kind of balancing the ship, I think, keeping going in the next few months. I don't really think that there's going to be any great waves made on the first budget by the Tories because it's going to be very difficult to get a hearing. I think they need a couple of years really kind of putting the whole thing back together and then they get to write their own hearing once again.
Yeah, I mean, Keir Starmer's been handed his dream start on a plate, including that farcical situation last night. The very first thing the Conservatives had to do, Rebecca, after taking a monumental kicking at the general election, was to elect the new leader in 1922. And as it currently stands, that leader is not being accepted by people because they couldn't even organise the vote on time.
Yeah, and what they need to be doing is saying, how do we make it look like we're the grown-ups again? How do we present that we are calm, sensible adults who aren't going to change leader every 30 seconds, who aren't going to just scream, what's a woman, in people's faces? And this is not giving that impression. And the worse they do, the better they make my side look. I'm having the best week ever. This is like Real Housewives of Westminster. It's just gossipy drama. I'm loving it, but it's not good for your lot.
But it's not good for the country either, because a country...
It's great for the country, because they're doing nothing.
An opposition. Well, it's not good for democracy. Yeah. A country needs an opposition. And he's not getting it in the media, Keir Starmer, is it? They're all sitting around there absolute loving. I'm surprised no one's stuck the tongue down.
It's been less than a week.
Yeah, but...
So what? I mean, you don't see that having... That would not be the case with anybody else. They're all there loving... Oh, have you found your way around Downing Street yet? They're all there on the plane. They're presently sitting on his flipping lap as he's on the way to Norwich.
Right. Look, the only Tory who's had a good week, Patrick, is Bob Blackman. Right? He's the only Conservative in the country who managed to get more than 50% of the vote in his constituency, the only one. And then he did actually get more than 50% of the total Tory MPs. So even if people like Mark Francois missed it, it wouldn't have affected the vote. Look, it is going to take a little bit of time. I would do this if I was the Tory party. I'd put some of the old guard up, like the Jeremy Hunts of this world, and their only job is to hold Labour to account on a day-to-day business level in the House of Commons, fighting against the ludicrous votes for 16. I mean, you've got to have an airing there, but let's be clear, with a majority of 170, this stuff's going to pass, right? It's not really, it doesn't really matter in Parliament how the Conservatives vote. It's a colossal majority. It's about the public debate. So I'd ask the old hands, like Jeremy Hunt, who I understand has no leadership ambitions, to try and run the opposition, while the rest of the party, the next generation of the party, decides what its leadership is. I think you can do that in parallel.
I mean, they're eating themselves alive at the moment. You've got Kemi Badenoch taking a machine gun to that shadow cabinet and saying, you know, oh, yeah, I'm dead against leaks, and then mysteriously that thing comes out despite the fact that it obviously makes Kemi Badenoch look quite good to a load of voters. I mean, forgive me, I don't think it takes a genius to work out what's going on there. And then you've got Suella Braverman, you know, making some comments about the Progress flag, which, by the way, I thought were absolutely fair enough, but the usual times in the media have decided to call it an absolute aberration. And then a load of wet Tories have climbed on that and gone, oh, she's got to rule herself out now. Great, fantastic. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage is wandering around the corridors of Parliament. Parliamentary staff are being asked to stop taking selfies with him. You know, I mean, the whole thing's an absolute farce, isn't it? I mean, who do the Tories put in now?
I think what they need more than anything, rather than a long process, a short process, is a rigorous process. And I think they need to make sure that the way in which they're asking these questions in different hustings is actually going to be questioning the big things. It's not just about the who, it's about the what and the how and the where, which is about where are they going to win the country, how do they get to that position, and what actually it means to be a Conservative. And I think one of the key things you started with, Patrick, as well, was that key question, that existential question about the future with Reform and Nigel Farage. Do they do a deal or not? And I think that's going to be the key thing to kind of tease out in this debate, as well as relearning the habits of opposition.
I honestly think, why on earth would Nigel Farage want to do a deal with this lot?
I think because if I were the Tories, I'd be thinking about maybe our new thing isn't going to be culture wars, it's going to be, does our political system work? Should we be looking at something like PR? And that Reform would be more enthusiastic about.
Them, won't they?
But that would be something new. It could be their new kind of Brexity vibe. It's not a left-right divide at the moment. It's an interesting new conversation to be having. And while you're running that, you can be looking at bringing up new talent, because Labour has got a load of 20 and early 30-something MPs who have got long careers ahead of them. Because the Tories have been so so busy fighting fires, they haven't had time to invest in new talent, and they need that for the next election and the one after that.
Well, here's the thing, that I hope that the next leader of the Conservative Party becomes Prime Minister. But let's be honest here. When the Conservatives elect their new leader, we're not necessarily looking for the next Prime Minister. We're looking for a surgeon or a doctor or a necromancer to revive the dead corpse of the Conservative Party. That's the priority, actually. And the Conservatives have come out of this election very, very badly injured, but they are still the second party in vote share and in seats. Stabilising that for a year or two is the overriding priority. Get that wrong, and the party could be...
But I think if they spend their time taking little swipes at niggly little things the whole time, they're only going to look more childlike.
And it's
they
not
need
helpful
to act
to
like
accuse each other of having nervous breakdowns in public.
And
They've got to stop the personality.
And also, they should be willing the government to do a good job. They want the country to thrive. They should be saying, we want kids to do well for a bit,
and
then we're going to...
Starmer and the Labour Party blocked every single piece of legislation that was coming...
I mean, by the time it was too late to be salvageable. By the time it was too late to be salvageable. But it's pathetic to sit there wishing ill on someone who's trying to fix the country.
I think it's really interesting, though, that of the shadow cabinet appointments, there was no one kind of like 2005 and Cameron coming off the rails. I think all the names we're talking about this time have previously been floated in previous races. Of the 8 you put on the screen, 6 of them previously run.
You know what I wonder is whether or not the great British public is ever going to forgive that particular concoction of the Conservative Party for allowing the situation to happen that we've got now. And as we're going to talk about a bit later on in the show, you know, the chap who could be the new head of the Border Command is openly incredibly woke, as absolutely...
And isn't that exciting?
Well, not really. If you want him in charge of borders...
I'm excited.
I mean, good grief. This man is not going to be able to want to get to grips with absolutely anything in the Channel. I mean, he was talking about the Metropolitan Police need to admit that they're still institutionally racist. I mean, this does not bode well for people who want to see tougher border controls. And if Labour can continue to do this stuff and plough it through and we end up with some kind of quota system with the EU, it is the Conservatives who still have to carry the can for allowing this situation to happen. But anyway, as junior doctors immediately celebrate, shock horror here, a positive first meeting with West Streeting. Were they playing politics with patients' lives? And the nationwide manhunt for the triple murder suspect Kyle Clifford has come to an end after he was detained in a graveyard in London. We're going to go live to Enfield for all the latest on that, but before all of that, ex-MI6 boss Sir Richard Dearlove says that Sir Keir Starmer should prioritise defence spending over the NHS. And we'll be joined by Sir Richard as he goes head-to-head with former Labour spokesman James Matthewson. That's next. Stay tuned.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Question is...
should our museums stay free for everyone and anyone, or should we be charging our tourists?
So many of the artefacts are from around the world, stolen actually. I think it's almost to add insult to injury to ask people to pay to see the artefacts that were taken without their permission. One of the things that the museum set itself up for is a kind of World Heritage where you can see the stuff they took from your country free of charge. Because the British state's willing to do that, is one of the reasons why we hold on to many of the artefacts from around the world instead of giving them back.
I mean, that's a noble argument, Wayman, but none of the other countries in the world that also contain artefacts from all over the world indulge in that, do they? We still have to pay to see anything that's come from the UK that might be overseas?
No, but the absolute truth is that we've stolen a lot more over many more years than anybody else, because we're we had a very, very big empire, and during that time, taking things from other countries without their permission.
I think our wonderful country, the United Kingdom, is the cradle of modern civilization, not of the ancient world, but of the modern world. You know, for centuries, we've contributed things to the world which has spread out around the world, and the influence that we've put upon countries around the globe has been massively significant. I think it's a privilege for people to be able to come to this country and track the history of our country through our museums. I can't understand why they've ever been free. The upkeep of museums runs into hundreds of millions of pounds a year. Somebody's got to maintain them and keep them good. Somebody's got to go around the world and collect the artifacts which are in our museums. And I've always had the adage in life, if something is free, it's probably not worth having.
The People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. We are only on GB News. Now, coming up, were they just playing politics with patients' lives all along? I am, of course, talking about the junior doctors. I've got what I think is quite a revealing clip, actually. Some would argue it's receipts from one of the heads of the junior doctors at the BMA when I spoke to him a few months ago, asking him about how these strikes might end. And now, shock horror, we've got a Labour government, and, you know, here we are. But first, should the new Labour government prioritise defence spending over the NHS? It's time for tonight's head-to-head. Well, Sir Keir Starmer landed in Washington, didn't he, for the latest NATO summit earlier today, with an eye on increasing defence spending to 2.5% of GDP.
We will carry out our strategic review to look at the challenges, the capabilities, and on the back of that make further plans. I am committed to that 2.5% within our fiscal rules, but that strategic review needs to come first.
Well, it's worth bearing in mind that we currently spend a lot more on the NHS, around 11% of our GDP, with Health Secretary Wes Streeting now pledging to end the, quote, begging bowl culture of the health service. Well, former MI6 chief Sir Richard Dearlove has issued a stark warning to Starmer, saying that defence spending should be at least 3% of GDP, and that it is more important than funding the National Health Service. So tonight I'm asking, should we prioritise defence spending over the NHS? I want to hear from you. You go to gbnews.com/your say, tweet me at GBNews, and while you're there, make sure you go and vote in our poll. I'll bring you the results very shortly. But first, going head-to-head on this, well, it's the man himself. We've got Sir Richard Dearlove on, who made those comments, and former Labour spokesman James Matthewson. Well, Sir Richard, I might as well start with you on this, I think. Is it accurate to say that you think it's more important that we fund defence than the NHS?
I'm afraid at the moment, definitely yes. There is an urgency about this issue. I'll do a rather trite simile. It's 1938. Do you build Spitfires or do you build hospitals? You want to do both? You can't do both. It's clear which you should do first. We are engaged in a very serious conflict in Europe. We have depleted armed forces. And look, we've just seen a children's hospital in Ukraine targeted by the Russians. What's the point of building a new hospital when it's vulnerable? Okay, we're not Ukraine, but I'm trying just to get across the urgency and the importance of this situation. And I think fixing the National Health Service, which we all know is essential, is going to take time. But on the defence issue, we may not have the luxury of time. We may need to move immediately. So I'm not saying don't spend on the National Health Service. I'm saying look at the defence issues first.
Yeah, fine. I'll come back to you on that, and I'll bring you in now, James, because, I mean, there is a point there. There is no point in a new hospital if Putin's just going to kind of nuke us anyway.
Right, well, I mean, that's understandable, and I understand where Sir Richard's coming from with this, and I think it is, I mean, we need to listen to people like Sir Richard who have the experience on defence about how important it is right now, given the world stage and where everything is at. However, it is important to acknowledge the fact we are not at war. We are not currently at war, and we do not have a war economy at the moment. Now, we understand the gravity of the situation in Europe, we understand the gravity of the situation in the Middle East as well, and of course, tensions are running high, but we are not ourselves at war. What we are seeing at the moment is a complete crisis of healthcare provision in the UK, from dentistry to normal healthcare provision to access to GPs, to doctors, to appointments, people with cancer appointments waiting months and months and months. And it's causing, a crisis. And I think when it comes to defence, the argument is always that, a government has to protect its population. You have to also protect the population from illness, from disease, and from death. And that's part of the National Health Service duty.
Sir Richard, are we actually at war?
We are in a state of hybrid warfare with Russia. We're in a state of grey war. But if you wish for peace, prepare for war. We've had many historical examples. And look, I'm not minimizing the problem of fixing the issue of healthcare. It's hugely important to all of us. And of course, it's an immediate issue for many individuals. But for example, during the election campaign, there was no discussion at all of the urgency of the security. We have smaller armed forces, or we have the smallest armed forces in the UK since Napoleonic times. And there is a major war in Europe which could escalate at any time. We're in a position of weakness. And I think that we could do things initially to improve our defence situation. And okay, the NHS is an urgency as well, but I think in this particular case, the security of the nation comes first. The security of the individual in this instance comes second in terms of healthcare.
Yeah, OK. And look, I mean, I'm just having a look here. The NHS's spending in 2022 to 2023 was £181.7 billion. OK, that was on day-to-day items, the vast majority of it, such as staff salaries and medicines. I do put it to you, James, that when you look at the NHS spending as 11% of our GDP, and a lot of that being spent on day-to-day items, but also the salaries of people who work in that NHS, if we have the kind of crisis that you're describing in the NHS, actually some people who work in the NHS need to be blamed for that and not the government. But also, how much more money do we just pump into this bottomless pit when, potentially, we are about to have an actual conflict?
As much as you need to, Patrick, is the reality, because we have a free universal healthcare system in this country, and that's something we should be immensely proud of.
We don't, though, do we, James? Because we all pay for it. Now, this is important. It's not free. The NHS is not free, James. We pay for it.
You know how the system works. You know how the system works through taxation. The point is that you and I get the same access to
James,
it,
with respect,
no
mate, this is the classic view of people on the left, right? You don't see taxation as actually people's money. You just see it as other people's money, don't you? So it doesn't really affect you. But we all pay for it. And so I wonder, James, whether or not more people would rather we fended off a global conflict than actually just incinerated another £100 billion into, Wythenshawe Hospital, for goodness sake.
Running countries and running nation states is not a new thing, Patrick. You have responsibilities across the board, from healthcare to defence. You can do all of it. Running a country works. It has worked before. Look at the crisis we've been through in the past, in previous wars, as Sir Richard points to, where we've also managed to maintain. Our healthcare system was born after the Second World War, and there was a reason that people voted for that Clement Attlee government and not the Churchill government, despite the fact Churchill had just won a world war, because people recognised the importance of providing healthcare and providing a welfare state and basic provision for everybody in our country. We should be proud of that fact. And I'm proud to pay tax, and I'm sure as you, I pay a lot of tax, and I'm very proud of that fact. And I should be, because I can contribute to a system where everybody receives a level of provision that we should be proud of.
Right, OK, and you're not bothered about the massive levels of waste. Look, Sir Richard, I'll just bring you in on this. I mean, you do have an insight into this that, frankly, possibly only a handful of people in the country do have. And, you know, if I may, could you just imagine that our new Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is here? What will you say to him now when it comes to this? Because it does look as though they are prioritising things like the NHS over our actual national defence.
I think he's got to sit down with the people that understand this and understand the urgency of the threats to our national security. Now, I'm not asking for, you know, a massive change in government resources, but you take 1% of GDP and switch it to defence. OK, that's going to be costly. That's going to be difficult. But what I find shocking is that I didn't hear Starmer, I didn't actually hear Rishi Sunak either stand up during the election campaign and explain to the voters the seriousness of the international situation. I think we have to understand that we've got a massive problem in front of us. Now,
I don't think people want to be scared as well. That's part of the
you
thing.
know, if I can scare people into thinking realistically about this, I think I'm making a contribution to national security. I think people should be worried. There are all sorts of things going on. I mean, the Russians are regarding this as a state of war. It's a hybrid war. It's a grey war. It's an undeclared war. But it's still a very serious situation. And we need to take action to mitigate the threat. And we're not yet doing that. A defence review, great idea. But how long is it going to take? It's going to be a way of sort of delaying the issue. Delaying. Is it going to take 2 weeks? Is it going to take 3 weeks? I think you could carry out a defence review in a month if you call on the right people to explain the situation. And I'd like to see Starmer say, right, 2.5% now, rising to 3% very quickly. And we can do the National Health Service in parallel. I see the urgency of that, but it doesn't need to be done quite so quickly as this other issue.
No, exactly. I would really like to see an urgent review into NHS waste as well, to be honest with you, because I think that's an absolute disgrace, really. All right, both of you, look, thank you very, very much. So who do you agree with there? Should Starmer prioritise defence spending over the NHS? Mary says defence is first and foremost the most important thing for a government. If we are not safe, we won't be healthy. Yasin says health spending is the foundation of any civilised society. Without a properly funded NHS, we will move backwards as a society. That's fine, but what is properly funded, Yasin? £181.7 billion annually, I would argue, is something that is properly funded. And will we all continue to stand there and clap while they slap another rainbow flag around an NHS building and Putin rolls the tanks in? Janet, on your say, says the NHS doesn't need more money, it needs to be better managed. And I'm very much on Janet's side. Your verdict is in. 75% of you think that we should prioritise defence spending over the NHS, while 25% of you say that we should not. Coming up, in the past few hours, the manhunt for the triple murder suspect, Kyle Clifford, has come to an end in the most dramatic of circumstances after he was detained in a cemetery in London. We'll go live to the scene for all of the very latest on that, and I'll also be joined by a police sergeant and author, Harry Tanguy, and former Detective Chief Superintendent of the Met, Kevin Hurley. I want to know about how this police manhunt went down. I also want to know a few things about how easy it is to get a crossbow in this country as well. But next, the junior doctors have sat down with Wes Streeting just once, and they are heralding the meeting as positive and constructive. Well, let's be honest, during the strikes, they were playing politics with patients' lives, weren't they? I'll face off against the GP, back in the junior doctors. Don't go anywhere.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain will ease slowly but surely through tonight. However, it is going to be another cloudy day for most of us through tomorrow. That's because low pressure is very much in charge. We've got a northerly wind as well for some areas. That's bringing that particularly cool feel, particularly for the early part of July. So rain will persist for northeastern areas of Scotland as well as some northern areas of England, parts of Northern Ireland as well. But the rain is going to ease a little and we will lose that risk of thunderstorms through northern areas of England. Staying dry across the south, temperatures around 12 or 13 degrees as a minimum overnight. So a fairly mild start to the day. But as I said, where we do have that northerly wind across parts of Scotland, that's where it's going to feel quite cool through much of the day. Temperatures not climbing much higher than 13 degrees in Aberdeen by lunchtime, even 11 degrees to start the day. So there'll be little change from the morning into the afternoon. A brighter day though for Northern Ireland, western areas of Scotland. cloud, though, thickening across parts of North Wales into the Midlands and across many southern areas. The cloud will start to build into the afternoon, but it should stay dry through much of the day across many southern areas. So here, that's where we'll see the the highest temperatures, the warm sunshine still pushing through across parts of the south into Wimbledon as well. It should be another dry day on Thursday, and there will be more in the way of sunshine for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland as well. Despite that northerly wind, temperatures still climbing to the mid-teens, possibly the higher teens for some parts of the central belt by Thursday afternoon. Looking ahead to Friday, we do see a risk of showery rain pushing up from the south and east, threatening the south coast. Further north, though, it will be a much drier day, but still a northerly wind means temperatures will be a little below par, but not feeling too bad in the sunshine where you do see it. And it does look a little bit drier into the start of the weekend. A risk of showers, though, developing later on in the weekend, but temperatures climbing to around 23 by Sunday.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight on GB News. We'll bring you all the very latest on that triple murder suspect, Kyle Clifford, in just a few moments. But first, junior doctors have hailed, quote, positive and collaborative face-to-face talks with the new Health Secretary Wes Streeting. The co-chairs of the BMA's Junior Doctors Committee, Dr Robert Lawrenson and Dr Vivek Trivedi, confident that the pay row can now be resolved without further strikes. Well, it's a remarkable change of tune, this, isn't it? From the previously militant union reps that refused to budge on their whopping 35% pay increase demand. But given that Streeting has previously ruled out meeting that demand, question has now been raised as to whether or not the strikes were politically motivated and designed to punish the previous Tory government. That's something I actually put to Dr Robert Lawrenson earlier this year.
Westminster needs to have a general election in the next...
That's what's political, isn't it? That's what you're talking about. You see, it's got political quite quickly there.
No.
General election, change of government, Labour government.
No, I'm not interested in what colour rosettes, in government next year. You know, when I look at my pound coins in my wallet, I don't have a Labour rosette on it or a Tory tree on it. It doesn't matter to me.
Interesting. Well, yesterday's meeting comes after the latest round of industrial action ended last week, timed to deliberately coincide with the general election, which meant that no negotiations could possibly take place. Indeed, since doctors began their industrial dispute over 20 months ago, a whopping 1.4 million appointments have been postponed, with roughly 6.3 million patients still waiting for treatment. I'm very glad to be joined now by the Chief Executive of Doncaster Local Medical Council, Dr Dean Eggett. Dean, look, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. The junior doctors just been exposed here, playing politics with patients' lives.
It's hard to say no, really, because let's be honest, striking is political. Trying to change the terms and conditions of employment is political, and it's no hidden secret, really, that a Labour government tends to be more supportive of unions. So it's hardly surprising, really, that junior doctors or any union would want the Conservative government out and to be negotiating with a Labour government. And it's hardly surprising that the first chats were positive. Of course, every first chat is going to be positive until you come across a roadblock, and then it starts to deteriorate.
I just wonder whether or not that will actually mean anything to the people who died while the doctors were on strike or their relatives, you know?
Yeah, it's a difficult quote, that, isn't it? Because research has been done about the impact of strikes, and actually looking back to the junior doctor strikes of, I think it's 2016. So there's no evidence at all that there is increased people dying, but there's certainly evidence that some people will suffer as a consequence. And in particular, ethnic minorities tend to suffer more than those who aren't minority groups. So do strikes cause harm to patients? Sadly, the evidence seems to be yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, if you're a healthcare professional and you decide not to go into work, then people will become less healthy. I just wonder how doctors justify that to themselves. I'm also concerned about the reality, which is they're after a 35% pay increase, supposedly. They see it as pay restoration, but that's another question, I suppose. I did actually put to Dr. Lawrenson whether or not, if he got that 35% pay increase, he would still just leave and go to another healthcare system abroad like Australia, America or Canada. And I've got a little clip of it now.
But you could be a part of all of this now and then just leave anyway.
I hope to have a long and successful career of about 40, 50
Are you actively planning on going to Canada or Australia as it currently stands right now?
No.
But you're not ruling it out in the future?
Oh, correct. I'm not ruling it out in the future, no.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, you know, when you hear all of this and we talk about it, do you actually support the junior doctors when they're out on strike? Would you support them if they went on strike again?
No, I don't support striking junior doctors. I support the cause of the junior doctors. So I think it's right that junior doctors need a pay increase. They call it restoration. I think they need to be paid more. I think we need to look at their terms and conditions. It's a really, really challenging job with reasonably low pay in comparison to what they do. And that certainly needs to be looked at. But do I think striking is the right way to go about that? Absolutely not. I think it needs to be done by negotiation and trying to resolve the issue at hand and talking to each other. I'm not sure actually the junior doctors have been very good at that.
A lot of it is about bringing the public with you there, right? You know, people went outside and clapped for the NHS. People actually locked themselves inside and lost their jobs to protect the NHS. And then at the first chances that they've got, a lot of these junior doctors, I get what you mean about you say that they're not paid well for what they do, but I mean, they're paid a huge amount more than the majority of people in society. They've got absolutely cracking pensions and their potential career earnings going down the line are immense. So, you know, do they really have any right to do this? Are you worried that maybe they've lost all the public sympathy now?
Looking at polls, the junior doctors don't seem to have lost public sympathy at the moment. Actually, the public remains in support, if not support has grown for junior doctors. I don't necessarily think that's because of the plight of the junior doctors. I think it's because the Conservative government have done such a terrible job in negotiating with them. So this is where Wes Streeting has an opportunity here to try and do something about winning over patient support on behalf of the government rather than the junior doctors. Yes, doctors are well paid, junior doctors not well paid, but the crux of the matter is if we don't do something about their pay and terms and conditions, we will lose them. And if we
but they're going to go anyway. Yeah, this is the thing. This is why I played that clip. You know, you've got the guy there on record. Even if he gets what he wants, he's going to have a long and happy career in being a doctor. And, you know, the allure of Bondi Beach comes calling, even if you've got the complexion of Dr. Robert Lawrenson, I'm afraid. But as the Chief Executive of Doncaster Local Medical Council, Dr. Dean Agate, thank you very, very much. Great to have you on the show. Look, coming up, a former police chief who once said that he was proud to be woke is now in line to lead Labour's attempts to stop the bows. So is Starmer a soft touch? Should we fear an EU illegal migrant quota? My panel will get stuck into that shortly, but next, yeah, the manhunt for triple murder suspect Kyle Clifford has ended in the past few hours after he was detained and taken out of a cemetery in North London. We'll go live to the scene for all the latest, and I'll be joined by two police chiefs as well for their verdicts on what we've seen so far. Stay tuned.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, time for the best part of the show, Our Greatest Britain, where we share amazing people who do amazing things. And this week, that is Dr. Leo Cheng and the Reverend Hilary Cheng.
Well, Dr. Chen,
regularly serves as a volunteer surgeon aboard the Mercy ships in West Africa and has recently served his 17th mission aboard the ships. He volunteers with his wife, Reverend Hilary Cheng, a Methodist minister in the UK.
Thank you for joining us, and what a privilege. So just briefly explain, what are Mercy ships?
Well, Mercy ship provide world-class surgery on the ship, and the ship then sail to these poorest of the poor country because there's no infrastructure to get road or rail there. And we offer free surgery and also education, training of medical staff, and partner with the local or the host nation to build up their surgical and anaesthetic services.
So how long have you been travelling West Africa? You go on all these different ships, different ports, and you treat the needy and the vulnerable. How long have you both been doing this?
20 years.
20 years?
Just over 20 years.
And you take the time to do this out of your own holiday from work. Why do you do it?
Well, because I'm indebted to the education in this country with all the qualification I get. And NHS is great. I love the NHS because without NHS, we see cases that we see in the low-income country. And I want to make use of my hand to help those people who have no way of helping themselves. Because the tumours, the deformities, not just a physical ailment, but it's being ostracised and die early, commit suicide because they've been ostracised by their family.
When you're on the ship, you are seeing the very worst that the country can offer. I find it a great privilege to work alongside these people.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back. Look, coming up, should we fear an EU migrant quota? But first, in the past few hours, the countrywide manhunt for triple murder suspect Kyle Clifford came to an end. He was detained in a cemetery in North London. Our GB News reporter is actually at that graveyard for us now, Theo Chikomba. Theo, thank you very much. What happened then? What was the latest, please?
Yes, well, this investigation has been moving at speed. Kyle Clifford, 26-year-old, was wanted as a suspect in connection with the murder of 3 women in the Bushy area in North London. Now, of course, the police have been working throughout the day to establish the facts, to find out what's happened. But it was just before 7 p.m. yesterday where they were called to an incident in Bushy, and there they attended to 3 women. But unfortunately, the emergency services who attended the scene were not able to help them, and they were pronounced dead on the scene. And today, there's been a heavy police presence in that neighbourhood. And throughout the day, we were getting information here and there, finding out what is the latest from the police. And it was just before midday when we found out from the police, Hertfordshire Police, saying that he may be in possession of a crossbow. And I think that from that moment, it kind of escalated, and it got armed police and more involved in this extensive search. And then early this evening, we found out that just here at this cemetery in Enfield, he was found, and police say although he was injured, there was no shots fired. They confirmed that, and he was taken to hospital in an ambulance, which left this afternoon. Now, we understand he's still in hospital being treated with injuries, but we haven't been provided with any further updates as of yet. But what's been interesting is the speed of this. Just under 24 hours that this operation has taken. And of course, the police are continuing and are urging anyone with information to get in touch with them by calling 999.
All right, Theo, thank you very, very much. Theo Chikomba there from the scene of that graveyard where the suspect was detained. But I'm joined now by Police Sergeant and author Harry Tanguy and former Detective Chief Superintendent of the Met Police, Kevin Hurley. Both of you, thank you very, very much. Harry, I'll start with you. I actually think that 24 hours, just under, sounds like a heck of a long time for a man who is suspected of a triple murder in absolutely gruesome and horrific circumstances. What are your thoughts?
Oh, every minute
feels like an hour to those police officers who undoubtedly it was their number one priority to find this man. The longer it's left, of course, the more chance he's got to move away from the scene. I think the longer it left, they probably thought he had probably taken his own life, perhaps, like Abdul Azizi. And of course, that's relatively common in a situation such as this, where someone is so desperate. And so I think it's great news. Personally, I want to see justice done now. And I know members of the public will think exactly the same. It would have been a bit of a get out for this individual, this suspect, we must say, I suppose, officially. He is a suspect, that he hasn't taken his life, and that this poor man, the father and husband of this family, can see some sort of justice. It is a long time. Yeah, but it could have been longer if he had. If someone really wants to hide themselves for a couple of days.
This is it. This is it. And details are emerging over the course of the day that he had some kind of military experience as well. And I think that added to the concern that actually maybe this guy knew how to hide himself. Again, I want to emphasise he is a suspect at the moment. Kevin, look, what can we read into what we know so far, which is that this individual was detained. As it currently stands, we're not hearing he's been officially arrested or charged with anything. So, I mean, are police still keeping an open mind here?
Well, they will be keeping an open mind, but the big thing that they will have been working on right from the get-go is forensic evidence, because whether or not this is the right person, and one assumes he probably is, because I understand he had a relationship at one stage with one of the girls who's unfortunately dead, and I guess they got that from the father, who must be in a real shocked condition, come home from work and find that. But what they will be doing, really packing it in, is forensic examinations of that crime scene, forensic examinations of his Seat car. They will then want to be seizing his clothes. They'll want to know where he was before to see if he's left forensic evidence anywhere there, because they're going to be relying on things like blood splatter, DNA evidence, fibre transfer, shoe print lifts. So there's going to be a wealth of forensic evidence probably in the car that the guy left the scene in, assuming that he is the actual person responsible. And of course, the clothes, if there was a fight or he's got hold of anyone, the fibres on the clothes will be transferred across to each other. There will probably have been shoe prints on the wood floors in that house, so they'll want the shoes. So their big issue, what part of the drive was public safety to find him quickly, and the other drive from the investigator point of view will be to get him as quick as possible to preserve as much forensic evidence as they could.
Now, we are a little bit pressed for time, but Harry, can I just ask, what is the situation when it comes to owning a crossbow in the UK at the moment? Again, that is one of the weapons that was believed to be used by whoever may have done this.
Yes, you can legally own a crossbow. You can fire it in your garden as long as it's safe to do so and it doesn't overshoot that garden, put members of the public in danger. However, you can't walk around with it willy-nilly. You have to have a very good reason to do that. I personally think a law change is not going to change this. If somebody is that determined, they are that determined, and no law is going to stop that.
Yeah, no, indeed. And, yeah, Kevin, I think I've just about got time for a final word for you on this. I mean, how common are these kind of incidents, not obviously specifically when it comes to the scale of the manhunt, but, you know, in Britain to see this scale of slaughter, really, in a suburban area?
Well, I mean, it's not that common, but in these domestic situations where people behave extremely irrationally, it does happen from time to time. I remember the case of the EastEnders actress who was murdered by her partner and a couple of kids. You remember that in Bexley Heath. This kind of thing happens from time to time. Unfortunately, human emotions being what they are, you can get some pretty bad stuff done if people don't self-regulate and they've got some kind of mental problem.
Well, can I just say a massive thank you to both of you. Much appreciated coming on, having a bit of your wisdom there and how the search operation will have gone and the kind of things the police will have been looking for and where we are right now. That was former police sergeant and author Harry Tanguy and former detective chief superintendent at the Met Police, Kevin Hurley. So thank you very, very much. Well, moving on from that now, a new poll among Tory members has put Kemi Badenoch with double the support of Suella Braverman. But who would make a better Conservative leader? I'm going to be joined by former government minister, the ever-outspoken Dame Andrea Jenkins. Whose side is she on? She's not going to hold back. But next, a former police chief who once said he was proud to be woke is in line to lead Sir Keir Starmer's attempts to stop the boats. Is it about to be open season for illegal migrants in the Channel under the Labour Party? This is Patrick Christys tonight. Oh, I'm also going to be looking at an EU migrant quota as well. Stay tuned for that. We're only on GB News. But now it's time for your weather with Annie Shuttleworth.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News and weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain will ease slowly but surely through tonight. However, it is going to be another cloudy day for most of us through tomorrow. That's because low pressure is very much in charge. We've got a northerly wind as well for some areas. That's bringing that particularly cool feel, particularly for the early part of July. So rain will persist for northeastern areas of Scotland as well as some northern areas of England, parts of Northern Ireland as well. But the rain is going to ease a little and we will lose that risk of thunderstorms through northern areas of England. Staying dry across the south, temperatures around 12 or 13 degrees as a minimum overnight. So a fairly mild start to the day. But as I said, where we do have that northerly wind across parts of Scotland, that's where it's going to feel quite cool through much of the day. Temperatures not climbing much higher than 13 degrees in Aberdeen by lunchtime, even 11 degrees to start the day. So there'll be little change from the morning into the afternoon. A brighter day though for Northern Ireland, western areas of Scotland. Cloud though thickening across parts of North Wales into the Midlands and across many southern areas. The cloud will start to build into the afternoon, but it should stay dry through much of the day across many southern areas. So here, that's where we'll see the warmest, the highest temperatures, the warm sunshine still pushing through across parts of the south into Wimbledon as well. It should be another dry day on Thursday, and there will be more in the way of sunshine for Northern Ireland, western Scotland as well. Despite that northerly wind, temperatures still climbing to the mid-teens, possibly the higher teens for some parts of the central belt by Thursday afternoon. Looking ahead to Friday, we do see a risk of showery rain pushing up from the south and east, threatening the south coast. Further north, though, it will be a much drier day, but still a northerly wind means temperatures will be a little below par, but not feeling too bad in the sunshine where you do see it. And it does look a little bit drier into the start of the weekend. A risk of showers, though, developing later on in the weekend, but temperatures climbing to around 23 by sunset.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Summer could be a scorcher with your chance to win £30,000 cash, our biggest cash prize to date. It's totally tax-free, which means you get to spend every single penny however you like. What plans would you make with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank account? Take your family on the ultimate holiday, buy that treat that's always seemed out of reach, or just put it in the bank for a later date. However you'd spend it, make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight.
It's Harry Kane.
England are through to the final of the Euros. But yes, in other news.
I find some of the commentary coming out of the Home Office inexplicable.
You think you have the dream to send refugees to Rwanda, for example?
Yes.
Well, believe it or not, but this is the man who could be the new head of Sir Keir Starmer's Border Command. And
setting up a major new approach to law enforcement against the criminal gangs who are undermining our border security and putting lives at risk.
Is Labour about to sign us up to an EU illegal migrant quota? Plus,
I will not apologise for fighting for a society that knows what a woman is.
Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman have just gone to war. Also,
majority of people that I've met in England that are English, no, not all of them, obviously, you can't speak for everyone ever, but there's a good proportion of them that are just horrible people.
well, if so many young people hate Britain, then why don't they just leave? Also,
I take this oath under protest and in the hope that one day my fellow citizens will democratically decide to live in a republic.
bore off, Clive Lewis, you little attention seeker. And
paramedics now running quite fast, actually, through hilly fields along with police officers, but this could be linked, we understand, to the search for Kyle Clifford. We're just being...
A dramatic manhunt ends with the triple murder suspect detained in a graveyard. Also tonight...
And most importantly, the county must oppose mask bans for any reason. They do not keep us safer.
Is that the most hysterical mask wearer you've ever seen? I've got a very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. The director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, political guru at The Spectator, James Heal, and author and journalist, Rebecca Reid. Oh, yes, and I want you to tell me, please, what you think happens next here.
Mr. Pancake, you're under arrest. Don't move. Get on your belly. Get on your belly.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Labour's potential plan is a woke bloke in charge of border force and an EU illegal migrant quota. Next.
And the main news from the GB newsroom tonight at just after 10 o'clock. England are going to Berlin on Sunday. They've beaten the Dutch 2-1 in the Euros semi-final in Germany, securing their spot in the finals against Spain. If you're watching on television, England fans in South London let rip with cheers after Villa's Ollie Watkins scored a stoppage time winner. We know, of course, that the Dutch were first to score. They led inside 7 minutes, then Kane levelled from a spot penalty, but it was Watkins who's the hero of the hour, giving England the lead in the 90th minute. Englishmen and women all over the country unable to believe what's happened. We are going, I should say, England is going to Berlin on Sunday. Great news across the country. Sweet Caroline blaring from the speakers. On to other news now, and Sir Keir Starmer has said he wants to use the NATO summit to reset relations with world leaders and send a message to Russia's President Putin. The 75th NATO summit marks Sir Keir's debut on the world stage as the UK's Prime Minister, less than a week after the Labour landslide win, which put him in number 10. He's due to hold detailed talks with Joe Biden tonight at the White House. Sir Keir says the summit is an opportunity to continue galvanising support for Ukraine.
The change of government makes no difference to the support that we will provide. We've been united on this when we were in opposition, and it was really important to me to be able to affirm that face-to-face in the meeting. I did speak to him immediately after I was sworn in as Prime Minister last week. And so we build on that here at NATO at this important summit, because it is an opportunity for our Labour government to reaffirm our commitment to NATO.
Well, as I said, the Prime Minister holding talks with President Joe Biden tonight at the White House. And today, the actor George Clooney urged Joe Biden to step down as the Democratic nominee for president. George Clooney, who co-hosted a huge Hollywood fundraiser for the president just last month, gathering a record $28 million, appears to have had an about-face and changed his mind after Biden's disastrous performance in the first presidential television debate against Donald Trump 2 weeks ago. Now, news here in the UK from today, and the chief suspect in a triple murder case in Hertfordshire was located this afternoon by police following an extensive manhunt. Hertfordshire police were searching for 26-year-old Kyle Clifford, and they surrounded a cemetery in North London this afternoon. Paramedics and an air ambulance, as well as forensics teams, were on scene. It's understood the three murdered women in Hertfordshire, aged 25, 28 and 61, were the wife and two daughters of BBC racing commentator John Hunt. The force said the suspect is receiving medical treatment, having been found in Enfield with injuries. Police have confirmed, though, no shots were fired. Residents who live close to the murder scene in Hertfordshire described the incident as tragic and disturbing for their community.
Because this is such, as everyone is saying, such a quiet area, such a safe place where there's never been any sort of cause for concern. Now, for something so heinous to have happened in such close proximity to all of us, we're all very on edge.
Never seen so many police in my life. Crazy, absolutely crazy.
The deaths of three ladies in the same household is incredibly regrettable, and it's very shocking and scaring for local people.
Now, a new study released today suggested that sugar tax on soft drinks, introduced just over 6 years ago, has in fact led to people consuming significantly less sugar in their diets. The Conservative government brought in the rule to tackle obesity and encourage manufacturers to make their products healthier. Researchers who followed nearly 8,000 adults and more than 7,000 children for a year after the tax was introduced found sugar consumption dropped considerably. That's the news. It's coming home. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Polly Middlehurst. I'm back in an hour. See you then.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Now, would you believe it? England have made it to the Euros final after beating the Netherlands in a dramatic semi-final tonight, beating them by 2-1, including a fantastic strike in one of the last minutes of the game. Not that I would know, of course, because I'm here, aren't I? But anyway, we now go live to Will Hollis, who's with some jubilant England supporters up in Sheffield. Will, unbelievable scenes, I'm told.
Yes, well, it was caution and criticism that trailed England throughout this tournament, but hope and skill got them to this position where they are now going to be facing Spain in the final of the Euros. We've got a few fans here. Guys, what's your reaction to the win tonight?
Brilliant.
Lost for words almost.
I'm trying not to swear, that's all it is. I've had a few bits tonight, boys. Come on, England!
Celebrating England. What's the result like for you, my friend?
Amazing, honestly. Yeah, it was brilliant. I can't believe it. I was slating Watkins. I was saying, no, why Watkins? We need to get Tony on. We need to get Tony on. Just put it in the back of the net, didn't he?
This was the skill and the precision that everybody's been hoping for this tournament, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I can't put words on that performance first off. Were brilliant.
You were scratching your head for a while. Yeah. He was scratching his head, but the tension that they provided, amazing, and it's a good performance, especially down here. It's amazing to watch. And
everything we wanted and more, and now England will be taking on Spain. What about that challenge?
Well, yeah, that'd be amazing, man. Yeah, it's what dreams are made of, isn't it? You know. Yeah, he can probably tell you more than I can.
England, the home of football, and it is now greatly coming home. It could come home.
It could well come home, but I think to myself, I think to myself, like even the way that we performed tonight against how we've performed the rest of this season or rest of the cup, but like I think it's completely different in the sense of that we've got to believe where we've got to the final, and I actually think that we might actually end up winning a trophy.
Could we go all the way?
I think we could go all the way in the sense of that with the players that we've got. I think the sense of that the performance that we've produced tonight, I kind of think why can't we beat Spain? Why can't we?
It's coming home. It's coming home.
Of course it's coming home.
It's coming.
Of course it's coming home. Of course it's coming home from Sheffield.
It's coming home.
Oh, sit down.
They say it's coming home. We've still got one more big match before it could be said to be coming home. Spain on Sunday.
Absolutely unbelievable scenes there. Will Hollis, you legend. I'm loving having a look at this place now. They're in Sheffield. What dreams are made of. There it is. I mean, that final is going to be absolutely epic. I'm very pleased to say I will not be at work for that final. Can I also just say a massive round of applause to everyone here at GB News for those fine, upstanding young men there who, despite clearly consuming what I can only imagine was between, I'd say, what, 9 and 15 pints each. Not a single blink noted as well with that last lad there. Not a swear word. Not a swear word in sight. I thought the bloke wearing the number 8 shirt was going to give us a little bit of difficulty towards the end. I had my money on an on-air apology. But no, he just went straight out the traps. It's coming home. Will Hollis, you're a legend as well. Thank you very, very much. Well done, England. Well done, Gareth Southgate. It was never in doubt. Never in doubt. Right, I'm glad we got out of that one unscathed. I don't know about you. I was a bit worried there for a minute, but anyway. Well, let's do the news, shall we? Let's do the news, because it looks like Labour is about to put a woke bloke in charge of stopping illegal immigrants. Brilliant! Neil Basu, the ex-Assistant Commissioner for the Met Police, is said to be the front-runner to front up our new Border Security Command. Well, he reportedly urged the Met Police to accept that it is still institutionally racist and thought that positive discrimination might be necessary. Here he is, slamming Suella Braverman and the Rwanda plan.
I find some of the commentary coming out of the Home Office inexplicable.
You think you have the dream to send refugees to Rwanda, for example?
Yes.
What kind of impact did that have on you, that kind of language?
It is unbelievable to hear a succession of very powerful politicians who look like this talking in language that my father would have remembered from 1968. It's horrific.
He does also seem to be very proud of being woke.
I will go with the Oxford University Dictionary definition of the word woke. I don't think that's the way it has been used or applied to me, but that definition is, are you alert to issues of racial and social justice? Yes, I am. And if that is the definition of woke, I'll wear it as a bumper sticker every day of the week.
Well, he doesn't really seem to like the free press very much, some would say, because in July 2019, it was Basu who threatened to prosecute Stephen Edgington, now a GB News reporter, by the way. He was working for the Mail on Sunday at the time when the newspaper published leaked diplomatic cables, which led to the resignation of Kim Darrett, the British ambassador to Washington. Basu attacked a no-deal Brexit, saying it would make us less safe. I mean, does this guy sound like the right man to get tough on illegal immigrants in the Channel, or with the French, or perhaps not? He does sound like the kind of man, though, who might be amenable to us, I don't know, taking some kind of quota of illegal immigrants from the European Union, perhaps. Keir Starmer has been squiffy on whether or not we would sign up to some kind of EU quota system. Rwanda has been scrapped. 100,000 illegal migrants will now be allowed to claim for asylum. We're never going to get a returns agreement with countries like Iran or Afghanistan. And it's hard to see how Labour deal with this issue unless they do strike a deal with the EU for some kind of quota system. People have short memories, OK? But Starmer and Yvette Cooper, they visited the EU together in September last year. And what was the top line of the story that came out of that? Keir Starmer has revealed that he would seek an EU-wide returns agreement for asylum seekers who come to Britain. Yeah, fine, but that doesn't happen unless we take our quotes-unquotes fair share as well. Now, if they thought they could smash the gangs, there'd be no need to do that, would there? Well, will Labour stop the boats by simply flying in planes of illegal immigrants instead? Let's get our thoughts from our panel tonight. I am joined by the director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. I have got the political guru at The Spectator, James Heal, and author and journalist, Rebecca Reid. James, I'm going to start with you on this one, because you actually wrote an article, I believe, about Neil Basu at The Spectator a couple of years ago, a year or so ago. Yeah. And you were... Well, it was quite interesting, your views on him. Do you think that he might be the right man to talk tough on borders
I certainly don't. And I think that, you know, look, we can talk about woke and kind of politics of all this. I just think he's incompetent. I think he's got a record of failure in this roles. He's someone who's never really, I think, impressed in kind of his public interventions. And I question whether he's the right person to be leading this very politically sensitive job, given how much capital Labour is invested in claiming they'll be different from the Tories on this.
Just on that, you mentioned that he's got a track record of failure. I mean, what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, in his record about, for instance, going after the prosecutions of journalists in terms of the phone hacking, about his comments at about Stephen Edgington you mentioned there in the Mail on Sunday story. I was at the Mail on Sunday at the time in 2019 when that happened. Those comments had to be then slapped down by the two then contenders, Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt, for their leadership. I remember massive outcry, and I think that he's someone who makes ill-judged public interventions and was never particularly, I think, regarded as one of the kind of candidates to succeed Christys Dick, which was one of the reasons why she stayed so long as head of the Met. And I think basically it's an indictment of the kind of senior police leadership we've got, where a lot of people now go off into private security firms, and actually we're left with kind of some of the less impressive candidates to lead forces like this across the country.
All right, so here we go. Put him in charge of this new border command, Mark. You know, a bloke who thinks that Rwanda was a terrible idea, slams Suella Braverman, etc. You know, has just been quite sort of vociferous in his political interventions.
It doesn't inspire confidence, does it, Patrick? I mean, Labour's basic approach is, if we just get enforcement right, smash the gangs, have this new sort of border force thing, few more people pulling the right levers, we can crack the problem. I have never believed it's as simple as that. Sure, enforcement has been poor for years, so it does need to be tightened up. But in my view, both with regard to asylum and legal immigration, it's a question of the legal framework that you set. So I suspect this is a bit of window dressing. Look, Labour will be able to get away with it for a while. They can blame everything on 14 years of Tory rule for a while, but give it 12 months. Well, yeah. If this isn't working, then it's fully on them.
They can blame, and by the way, absolutely, so they should blame a heck of a lot on 14 years of Tory rule. There can be no doubt about that. But they've been in office now a few days, scrap the Rwanda plan, and if they then put a woke bloke in charge of our borders, and the only way around this, by the way, Rebecca, that I see, is if we take a quota system from the EU, because we're not going to get returns agreements with countries like Iran and Afghanistan. That's not going to happen. Boats are going to keep coming, so we're going to have to do some kind of quota system, aren't we?
Well, there's a lot of things to address there. To start with, the fact that he is woke, I think, is a nice thing. He is aware of social injustice. The police have a pretty poor track record in lots of arenas where actually being a bit more woke might help and certainly might restore some public faith. Additionally, this is a role which has the potential to come with a lot of being accused of being racist. So the fact that he has a politically gentle, woke, you may say, track record might actually help him be able to get some things across that somebody else might really struggle to. In terms of quotas, so one of the biggest nationalities of illegal immigration here is Vietnam, and yet we don't ever really seem to talk about that. We tend to talk about small boats and we tend to talk about a specific demographic, but there is a much wider and bigger problem here. In terms of the return agreements, a lot of people coming from Iran or Afghanistan would have a very legitimate reason to make a claim anyway, particularly if you're a woman coming from one of those countries. So returns agreements there, I would say, is one of the lesser problems. What I'd be more concerned about is returns agreements with countries like Algeria, where there would be a good conversation to be had. But yes, if quotas mean that you end up with fewer people and you have access to fingerprint tracking...
But that's the fear, isn't it? That it's not fewer people at all.
But they're not going to sign up to take more people. They will sign up to take a smaller number of people and to have them better monitored. And this fingerprinting system is a really genuinely brilliant idea. You can't change your fingerprints without burning off your fingertips, and it means you can actually keep track of people.
We've been banned from doing things like this in the past because we said it contravenes their human right. This is the hypocrisy of it all. You know, dental checks, wrist X-rays, fingerprinting.
Then why are all these European countries able to do it?
Some of them are children. Why now all of a sudden you wheel in a bloke who's, you know, quotes unquote woke. You can get away with all this
stuff. Two things. Firstly, do you want it fixed or do you want to complain? Because if you want it fixed, then let's do the fingerprinting. And secondly, why are other European countries able to do it if it's so problematic?
Yeah, because they are not hamstrung by the fact that we've had a load of people sniping from the left in this country in the way that we have.
Who was in power? Who was in charge? Who made the decisions?
Yeah,
we don't not have that because the left snipes.
The Tories weren't tough enough. And I agree with at least the inference of your point, Patrick, that I think this is extremely difficult to deal with unless you leave ECHR and repeal the Human Rights Act and start again. I'm not saying I want to abolish human rights in Britain, but I think the present human rights infrastructure makes dealing with this problem near impossible, whatever your border force enforcement is.
It's James Cleverly leading the Tory response on this, and I'll be very interested to see how he does, given the context of the Tory leadership and all this. Can he hold Labour to account on this?
Yeah, well, this is it. All right.
It should be easy easy win for him, shouldn't it?
Well, there we go. Look, coming up, I've got all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages to bring you. Will there be any new developments over triple murder suspect Carl Clifford? Because he was apprehended in Enfield earlier today, wasn't he? Also, why do so many young people hate Britain? But now,
the majority of people that I've met in England that are English, no, not all of them, obviously, you can't speak for everyone ever, but there's a good proportion of them that are just horrible people.
But next, new polling of Tory members shows that Kemi Badenoch has double the support as Suella Braverman. So is she the person to pull the party back together? Former Conservative MP and Government Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins. Well, she's no fan of Kemi, and she joins me to explain why shortly.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In World War I, 309 men from Britain and the Commonwealth never came home because they'd been shot at dawn. The majority were killed for desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martials and told they'd brought shame on their country, these men had no opportunity to defend themselves and were executed by a firing squad. The National Memorial Arboretum launched a fundraising campaign to restore the memorial, which has stood for more than 20 years.
Thank you to your viewers for their support for the fundraising campaign, and thanks to the generosity of so many people, we've been able to replace all 309 of the posts that represent those young men that were shot in the First World War. Restoration of this really precious memorial.
The centrepiece of the memorial is the young soldier, blindfolded and facing his execution. In September 1916, Private Harry Farr was ordered to the front. Already suffering from shell shock, he was overwhelmed and refused his orders. He was court-martialed, and in a trial lasting only 20 minutes, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he faced the firing squad without a blindfold. Janet Booth is Private Farr's granddaughter and was part of the public campaign to have those who were shot at dawn officially pardoned.
When I asked my gran, do you know where I could find Harry's grave? And she looked at my mother and there was this sort of look between them, and then she said, well, he hasn't got a grave because they didn't warrant, he deserved one because he was shot as a coward and had let his country down. We can come here as a family and pay our respects to him, and also for all the other families, it's somewhere to come and remember their loved one.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Still to come, I'll bring you the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. But first, the Tory leadership contest is turning nasty, with frontrunner Kemi Badenoch saying Suella Braverman is having a very public nervous breakdown. That was one of her comments leaked from the Shadow Cabinet meeting yesterday. Suella Braverman has hit back, saying, I'd be interested in knowing whether Kemi thinks I am having a very public nervous breakdown. Hashtag honesty, hashtag unity, hashtag we don't leak. Meanwhile, fresh polling of Tory members shows that Badenoch has nearly double the support compared to Braverman, with Tom Tugendhat and Jeremy Hunt emerging as the next most popular option. So look, with the new leader of the opposition due to be decided, well, conceivably in a matter of weeks, it could be months, who is best placed to lead the Tory party out of the doldrums? To provide some answers, I welcome to the fray former Tory MP and Minister Dame Andrea Jenkins. Dame Andrea, great to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Look, Kemi Badenoch is the front runner at the moment. What do you make of that?
Well, having worked with her for several years in Parliament, I'm not her biggest fan. I think she's very bright, without a doubt. She's a nice enough person, but what you see isn't what necessarily what you get, actually, Patrick. Look at her voting record. She is just a party stooge. She voted for all Theresa May's deals. She voted for more net zero. Look how she behaved with Boris immaturely in those text message. Go on, do it, trying to get people to resign. And I also don't forget on the European Scrutiny Committee, where the great Sir Bill Cash chaired in the last Parliament, where she actually spoke to him in such a disrespectful way, schooling him. And also, one more thing, Patrick, which is concerning me, to think that Kemi was a London Assembly member. Why is there nothing online? Why is her internet history, seem to have been wiped prior to Brexit? That's what I'd like to know.
OK, all right, those are your views, of course. So you don't think that she is actually this kind of, big anti-woke, smacking their heads together kind of person that maybe the Conservative Party actually needs at the moment?
No, I think on the woke stuff, she's very good. I can't falter on that. She's very good on that. But on the other stuff, she'll just do as whatever Gove or anybody else says. Now, I think we'd better go in the direction of Priti or Suella. They're both Spartans like myself, and they're both fighters, and they're both Thatcherite Conservatives. And I think what we've seen really over the last 18 months really is that we need some red meat policies. Look how people went to reform. As you know, Patrick, I came on your show. I put the vote of no confidence into Rishi Sunak, and I don't think the party had learnt its lesson, and it's about time they learnt the lesson and listened to members.
OK, so what do you think of Suella's comments recently, though? Because she does appear to be losing quite a lot of support from within, so some of her former key allies. And this is something that is going to be gripping, really, because the two Tories that end up on the ballot paper for members, if indeed it goes to the members, they're going to be decided by the remaining crop of Tory MPs. And I think people are quite worried that they might be a bit wet.
I mean, I agree with you. That is the fear at the moment, definitely. And I don't want to see Tom is great, but again, is a one nation Tory. I certainly don't want Victoria Atkins. I don't like her whatsoever. I've got to be honest. I've made that known over the years. And
why not? Why not, out of interest?
Why? Even when she used to do ministerial surgery, she's just so damn rude, actually, Patrick, I'm afraid. She speaks down to people. She's on a high horse all the time. And that just drives me mad, in all honesty. I want somebody who's authentic. Now, my advice to Suella, for what it's worth, I like Suella and I really like Priti. Suella, she's got to remember the numbers. Look at the makeup of the party, what's left, the MPs, what's left. It's mainly 3/4 or more is the One Nation Conservative. So she has got to reel it back if she's wanting to get their votes to get into the final.
I just wonder if actually the way that the Tory party is going at the moment, if she's badly treated in an election campaign, like she might be if she does decide to go for leader, that her natural home will just be reform.
No, I don't think so, because, I mean, Suella and I got elected at the same time. I know her very well. And like myself, she's always believed Conservative Party leaders come and go, but ultimately we're Conservatives. We've got to get our act together, without a doubt. And I think that we're going to have a bit more turbulence the next few weeks while we're fighting for the heart of the party, from the One Nation group to the Thatcherite group. We're fighting for the heart of conservatism, but then we've really got to get our act together and be a strong opposition so we can come back fighting in the next general election.
Do you think that the people who are like the puppet masters behind the scenes are desperate to have Kemi Badenoch in? Because I was quite suspicious of this leak that's come out of that shadow cabinet meeting. And Kemi's response, look, unless I've missed this in the last couple of hours when I've been on air or about to come on air, and if I have, in which case I apologise. But she hasn't actually seemed to deny anything that was said in that leak, which implies that she did say it all, including that Suella's having a nervous breakdown. The fact that that got out there, I wondered, well, who leaked that? And then she's become quite popular in the polls, you know, partly as a result of all of this. So do you think she's the kind of one that they really want behind the scenes there?
Without a doubt, I think she's sort of been groomed, if that's the right word, to be the replacement for a while. I mean, there was even a whipping operation, which I wasn't involved in, but I was on the periphery, to try and get Rishi out. And I know that some of the people was key allies of Kemi. So I think this has been brewing for a long time, but I will certainly, even though I'm no longer an MP, I will certainly try to stop that, because I don't think Kemi Badenoch's the answer to stop reform, in all honesty.
All right, well, Dame Andrea, thank you very much for your time. It's good to see you again, and I hope that we chat again soon. This Tory leadership contest is going to rumble on, isn't it? So Dame Andrea Jenkins, former Tory MP and Minister. Well, what do you make of that, actually? I'd be quite keen to get your views on all of this. Who do you think is actually the best person? But look, hey, coming up, we are going to be having a little bit of a chat about this.
Majority of people that I've met in England that are English, no, not all of them, obviously you can't speak for everyone ever, but there's a good proportion of them that are just horrible people.
I'm just wondering why people like that bother to live here. You know, there is an airport probably within about 10-15 miles of where he made those comments. Would anyone volunteer to drive in there? Anyway, I'm also going to have the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, so stay tuned.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain will ease slowly but surely through tonight. However, it is going to be another cloudy day for most of us through tomorrow. That's because low pressure is very much in charge. We've got a northerly wind as well for some areas. That's bringing that particularly cool feel, particularly for the early part of July. So rain will persist for northeastern areas of Scotland as well as some northern areas of England, parts of Northern Ireland as well. But the rain is going to ease a little and we will lose that risk of thunderstorms through northern areas of England. Staying dry across the south, temperatures around 12 or 13 degrees as a minimum overnight. So a fairly mild start to the day. But as I said, where we do have that northerly wind across parts of Scotland, that's where it's going to feel quite cool through much of the day. Temperatures not climbing much higher than 13 degrees in Aberdeen by lunchtime, even 11 degrees to start the day. So there'll be little change from the morning into the afternoon. A brighter day though for Northern Ireland, western areas of Scotland. Cloud though thickening across parts of North Wales into the Midlands and across many southern areas. The cloud will start to build into the afternoon, but it should stay dry through much of the day across many southern areas. So here, that's where we'll see the warmest, the highest temperatures, the warm sunshine still pushing through across parts of the south into Wimbledon as well. It should be another dry day on Thursday, and there will be more in the way of sunshine for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland as well. Despite that northerly wind, temperatures still climbing to the mid-teens, possibly the higher teens for some parts of the central belt by Thursday afternoon. Looking ahead to Friday, we do see a risk of showery rain pushing up from the south and east, threatening the south coast. Further north, though, it will be a much drier day, but still a northerly wind means temperatures will be a little below par, but not feeling too bad in the sunshine where you do see it. And it does look a little bit drier into the start of the weekend. A risk of showers, though, developing later on in the weekend, but temperatures climbing to around 23 by Sunday.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, this is usually the time when I bring you tomorrow's News Tonight in the most entertaining pay-per-view you'll get anywhere on telly. But before we get to the front pages, England are in the final of the Euros. Aston Villa forward Ollie Watkins made it 2-1 in the 91st minute to defeat the Netherlands and set up a winner-takes-all decider against the Spanish on Sunday. Here's the moment that Watkins goal went in, but from Croydon. Look at the limbs there. Fantastic stuff. That is the very, very best of British, isn't it? Look at it. Beer everywhere. Everyone enjoying themselves. You love to see it. I mean, can you imagine what on earth it's going to look like on Sunday if we absolutely turn the Spaniards over? But let's take a little look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, shall we? So we start with the Metro. They've got Nether in doubt. Late strike earns 3 Lions a place in second consecutive Euros final. There we go. Well, let's go to the Eye. They go, here we go again. Southgate vindicated as his substitutions win England the game. I will also note that I think he might have made the substitutions slightly earlier than usual, but I'm only getting that in my ear because obviously I was trapped here. Anyway, they've also gone with water firms told to refund customer bills if they fail to tackle sewage. Well, let's be honest with you, no one cares about. We're in the final of the Euros. So there we go. Well done, Eye. Now I'm joined by my press pack. Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, political correspondent at The Spectator, James Heal, and author and journalist, Rebecca Reid. And may I just say a massive thank you, of course, for not watching much of the England game because you were here.
We were able to see the winning goal while we were just off stage.
That's great.
And also, you're so welcome, because I am obviously devastated.
No, that's good. So you saw it, did you?
Yeah, that's great.
It's an absolute peach, the winner.
it?
Yeah, you missed a treat, Patrick. Not trying to rub it in.
Really,
and there was
really
one that was nearly one, but then wasn't one, and that was all very exciting as well, narratively.
Good stuff. No, that's great. Sounds like a real thriller. Sounds like a real thriller of a game, actually. Yeah, no, good. My executive producer got the day off to go and watch it live, so that's great. Here I am.
The good news, Patrick, for us beleaguered Tories is that England only win major tournaments under a Labour government. So, you know,
wow,
every cloud,
there we are.
And now I have to do my thing where I point out that we won the Euros 2 years ago.
What?
We won the last Euros.
Oh, is it the women?
Yeah.
Right, fine.
Also an England team.
All right, jolly good. Right, now a video has resurfaced online of a young man explaining why he's not proud to be British. It was filmed before Rishi Sunak called the election. I'll be honest with you, it shocked me. I think it might shock you too. Take a look.
I hate England. This place sucks. The majority of people that I've met in England that are English, not all of them, obviously, you can't speak for everyone ever, but there's a good proportion of them that are just horrible people. The government sucks, the weather's awful, the job market's terrible, we get paid terribly. No, I'm not particularly proud to be British. And we've got awful stereotypes for the rest of the world. I mean, we're the most obnoxious when it comes to holidays, and it's just horrible. We refuse to learn other people's languages, and it's disgusting. No, I'd rather be French.
I think people might get on with him a little bit better if he looked like he washed his hair.
Yeah,
I love him.
Also, did he not see those scenes from Croydon?
Yeah.
I'm proud to be English after seeing
What, even
those
if you're in
scenes.
Croydon? Oh, sorry, I thought you said he was in Croydon.
No, he's not in Croydon. No, I mean...
I was watching that. I thought I was watching an episode of Rising Damp. I mean, it's just basically the weather's terrible, the economy's in the wire. I thought it was the 70s again. Look, I mean, all this stuff is plus ça change, as the French would say. He wants to go to France. I mean, look, he
can't go to France because we left the thing that allowed us to move to other countries.
What? So,
you can still travel to France.
You can't live there. You can't work
to
there.
France in a couple of months' time.
You can't work there, can you?
Well, you can.
Yes, you can.
You have to get a visa.
Oh, no. Oh,
well, we used to be able to just go and live places.
Possibly get a visa, can't we?
You have to be sponsored by a company.
So what? Get a job.
That's really hard to do.
Oh, good grief. Why don't you do... this is the kind of just give up, roll over and die attitude, isn't it, that we've got for a load of people.
Yeah, thank God our boys on the pitch didn't show that tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, I do think if that many young people seriously just hate this country, why don't they just leave?
How would they leave?
Oh, my God.
How would they leave?
To an airport and getting on a plane?
If you're a freelance social media executive, what on earth are you going to get a job doing in France?
Get a proper job.
What proper job are they supposed to get?
Oh, one minute ago, we were all arguing that junior doctors are about to go and leave if we don't pay them 35%. They can jog on quite quickly,
Yeah,
can't
doctors
they?
are quite important.
You know, old monkey hair there, he's trapped, is he?
It's a style choice. He looked fine. And
it's a style choice and he didn't look fine.
I thought that was a belated party political broadcast for the Conservatives and the National Service Policy, you know.
Oh, sorry, do you really think he would have been any use in the army? He would have been crying.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really care what you think. Oh, everything's awful. Crawl out your nan's basement and contribute.
Well, luckily, we have a change of government since that was last filmed, and we can all feel better and more optimistic.
Exactly. Right, now, anyway, I'd like to apologise to that lad because I know nothing about him. What you're seeing here now is a man who's annoyed he didn't watch the football.
Yeah.
OK. Yeah. He's probably lovely. Anyway, now, this is the moment that police in Ohio finally caught a fugitive suspected of causing chaos and setting bunnies, puppies and birds free after he broke into a pet store yesterday.
Mr. Pancake, you're under arrest. Don't move. Get on your belly. Get on your belly. On your belly. On your belly. Roll. Get on your belly, Mr. Pancake. Oh, God, there is a gerbil. Oh, there's a gerbil. Animal abuse. What the heck? I got a gerbil. What the heck? Multiple gerbils in his pants.
Multiple gerbils recovered.
All right, so your eyes are not deceiving you there. He was wearing a leopard print onesie and he accessorised by putting 2 live hamsters in his pocket. All right, which the police said had to, you might have heard it, multiple animals recovered. I'm surprised that it's America, isn't it? It's just like, one of the animals bit me.
Grand theft hamster is pretty crime in
it was a white hamster, so it was always going to be OK.
Oh, there she
I saw leopard print and I thought Theresa May's taking post-parliamentary life for it.
Yeah, he ran through a field of wheat to get to that pet shop, didn't he? But anyway, right, well, there we go. Coming up, the crowning moment of the show. Yes, that's right, where I decide tonight's greatest Britain and Union jackass, plus Labour MP Clive Lewis, precedes his oath to the King with this remark.
I take this oath under protest and in the hope that one day my fellow citizens will democratically decide to live in a republic.
OK, lovely. He's that kind of guy at school, isn't he? He thinks he's smarter than everyone else, but actually everyone's really bored of him. Lock him in the Tower of London. Just kidding. Just kidding. But is this the true face of Starmer's changed Labour Party? My panel will discuss in a couple of minutes' time.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I'm joined by showbiz journalist Steph Tetchy and the author Suze Holder. Welcome to you both. Ladies, right, what's top of the menu? What we got?
Oh, well, we've got this story about Elvis Presley and his blue suede shoes, Susan.
Yes, well, I am a huge Elvis fan.
Me too.
And if I don't get home and find those blue suede shoes kind of wrapped up for me, waiting for me, but they did go for £120,000, so possibly they won't be waiting for me, but oh my goodness, what a thing that somebody has actually managed to get those. So, yeah, so Elvis is obviously famous for an awful lot of things, but he did bring blue suede shoes out in the 1950s. He wore these shoes and they were auctioned at a place in Devizes yesterday. So I do just think it's key memorabilia for somebody who's an Elvis fan. There is an Elvis exhibition, do you know, at the moment. Have you been to that yet?
No, where is it?
You should get yourself down there. It's at London Bridge, and lots of things from Graceland are actually on exhibition there. So the blue suede shoes won't be there because they'll be. We don't know who's bought
the owner.
Somebody will have bought them. But his gold suit, which is also a very famous thing. He had a foil gold suit.
Is that there at this display?
It's there.
How's Graceland? Is it good?
I'd live there. You know what it is? It's an amazing place because you can visit so many places that people have been, or like you go to the White House, lots of presidents have been there, or you go to other places. This is a home. And although it's kind of wacky, crazy, amazing, it does feel like a family home. There's not many places you can visit that is so connected to a person.
Elvis Presley, blue suede shoes. If you're minted, 120 grand for a pair of those, that's a snip.
I think it is. Yeah, absolutely.
I thought they would have gone for millions. Same here.
Yeah, and they are authenticated. They were given away by Elvis. He gave away an awful lot of things. He gave it to one of his guys, one of the Memphis Mafia, Alan Fortas.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight, and I'm going to have some more front pages for you now. Let's do it. So, we're going in with the Times. Clooney calls on Biden to save democracy by standing aside. George Clooney became the most prominent Democrat to call on President Biden to end his campaign for a second term in the White House. Well, there we are. Apparently, Joe Biden immediately hit back by saying no and then asking who he was. But no, he didn't. Also, much more serious story on the front of the Times here. Former soldier held over triple crossbow murder. They put that in quotation marks because he is, I will emphasise at the moment, just the suspect. Daily Mail, crossbow horror. Popular BBC commentator's wife and daughters are murdered at home, the Mail says. Then ex-boyfriend suspect turns weapon on himself. Again, they're quoting that in Graveyard. That story has a heck of a lot further to go, and no doubt will be, apart from the England result, obviously, I imagine, leading the news agenda tomorrow. But as whizzed along, I am joined, as ever, by my wonderful panel, Director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, Political Correspondent at Spectator, James Heal, author and journalist, Rebecca Reid. Now, in the not-too-distant past, our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, wanted to abolish the monarchy. Apparently, he's changed his mind. But the same can't be said of all Labour MPs. Shall we have a little look at Clive Lewis taking his oath of allegiance?
I take this oath under protest and in the hope that one day my fellow citizens will democratically decide to live in a republic. Until that time, I do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles according to law.
Bore off, mate. I mean, is he just an attention-seeking little weasel, or has he got a point?
I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to stick up for him.
There we go.
I don't see why you can't be a Member of Parliament and a Republican.
He's also in the armed forces.
Yeah, OK, but he still took the oath to the King. He's not advocating any form of violence or terrorism to oppose the monarchy. He's hoping a republic might come about in many years to come. You might well disagree with that, fine, but it seems to me it's acceptable.
But why does he have to, do you not think it's just like a pointless show of, oh, look at me, here I am, oh, I'm not doing the oath properly, look at me.
Supposing you are a devout Republican, what should you do?
I think suck it up.
And I think as a group of
people... I remember years and years ago, the veteran Labour MP Tony Banks took it with his fingers crossed.
Well, there you go, but there's a theme that we're getting to here, isn't it? Jeremy Corbyn yesterday, I think we said it was a load of nonsense or whatever. You know, we had Clive Lewis there, we've had a Labour MP in the back taking it with his fingers across. Why is it that the left just seem to hate Britain?
Well, a lot of them like protests, you know, and protest gestures like this. I think, you know, if you want to have a debate about it, or by all means arrange a Westminster Hall debate or something like that, I just think there's time and a place. And, you know, frankly, if you were, for instance, swearing an oath to this country, if you were getting your citizenship, you wouldn't, you know, you'd be thrown out for doing what he just did there.
I just wonder, has he done it before?
I don't know off the top of my head, actually, but, you know, I think, look, it's the kind of thing that Keir Starmer's tried to change the Labour Party, and then the first day back, Clive Lewis does this.
Well, I mean, I imagine he would have to turn down a cabinet role, wouldn't he? You know, I mean...
No, of course
I'm not sure many will be coming Clive Lewis's way after that, but...
I don't think he would, but also one of the beautiful, wonderful things about Britain is that you can live here and prosper here and enter the upper echelons of government while not being in support of the monarchy, and I think that's beautiful. I also think it's very ironic when a lot of people who are on telly tell somebody else off for being an attention seeker, because we all know we're all as bad as that.
I don't think we are as bad as that. I mean, I find that incredibly smarmy, to be honest. I do. I just find it like...
What else should he have done? Just lied and pretended that he...
Well, just stop making a spectacle of himself.
Well, respect the rules, and then you can change the rules if you want.
In the same way that you can swear, you can swear on a book that isn't the King James Bible if you're not of that faith. So you could swear on a different Bible or a different religious text. Surely it's appropriate that you could also switch out the monarchy because it's about what you personally believe.
Yeah, I don't know. It just felt to me a little bit like that was maybe more of an attention-seeking gesture than anything else.
Well, I think one's a matter of personal faith and to religion, and the other's about, you know, the law of the country. You know,
but he's taken the oath.
Monarch.
No, he's still doing it.
But he did it in such a way which obviously was trying to kind of undermine the whole process. Yeah, that's what I'd say about it.
A bit snarky. Anyway, now, Hollywood megastars Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner. Not heard of her. Anyway.
She's an incredibly famous actress.
Is she? Well, good for her. Are used to being in the limelight, but it's their daughter who's making headlines. 18-year-old Violet is often seen wearing a face mask since she contracted a post-viral condition in 2019. And a passionate plea to the governing body for Los Angeles County, Violet called for the end to all mask bans. All right, let's take a look.
1 in 10 infections leads to long COVID, which is a devastating neurological cardiovascular illness that can take away people's ability to work, move, see, and even think, stands to exacerbate our homelessness crisis, as well as the suffering of many people in our city. It hits communities of color, disabled people, elderly people, trans people, women, and anyone in a public-facing essential job the hardest. And most importantly, the county must oppose mask bans for any reason. They do not keep us safer.
So is that Hollywood Nepo baby going to make our lives a mask-wearing hell once again? I mean, let's hope not. You know, with respect, I feel for her if she's developed some kind of post-viral condition, and, you know, absolutely. But, you know, is this not the kind of mask hysteria that we've all grown sick of?
It's just ridiculous. I mean, I could barely hear what she was saying.
Yeah, well, ironically, yeah, exactly.
No, I hate all of this stuff. I mean, by the way, the masks are generally there to protect other people rather than yourself. If she's got a condition, I don't know, wants to go around in a hazmat suit or something, be my guest. But I think this is just performative nonsense, really. And actually, when we ended the mask mandate here, I was noticing on public transport, still a lot of people were wearing them. Now, I can't get inside their heads, but it just struck me that it was a virtue signalling device rather than a genuinely considered view about public health. You were wearing a mask, say, I really care about it.
It's interesting, isn't it? I do wonder whether or not now, for a lot of people, not everyone, but for a lot of people, a mask is part of the kind of woke bingo card of things that you get. So, you know, you see mask, you maybe see the EU flag on one lapel, perhaps the Palestinian flag on another, pronouns in bio. You know, I wonder if that's it.
Particularly in America, I think, where you can almost kind of guess what someone's politics were during the COVID, particularly if they're wearing a mask or not. It's much more kind of identical and efforts to follow the same line. So I think, as you were saying, Mark, if it becomes more about kind of almost sartorial, it's certainly virtue signalling rather than actually medical science.
Yeah.
Well, in her case specifically, she lost 2 years of her childhood right in the middle of her teens, a very formative period, and her parents had an incredibly high-profile divorce, and now J-Lo is her stepmom. So she's had a very, very rough few years. And I think there's a reason that very young people need this to be so big and so important. Not all of them have J-Lo as a step-parent, but they did all lose a huge part of their childhood.
I'll be honest with you, Rebecca, I mean, I don't think you'll find too many chaps in the world who would be complaining if they had J-Lo as a stepmom.
Fair play.
So,
but my point is, I think for a lot of young people, they need this to still feel true because they made a huge sacrifice and they lost a lot for it. And if it meant nothing, then they lost it for nothing.
But do you not think that now the idea that she wants to make everyone else wear it?
She doesn't want to make everyone else wear another one. She doesn't want to make everybody else wear one. She wants to be able to wear hers in all public spaces. There are some places where you can't go around with your face covered, and she wants to be able to wear hers.
OK, all right, well, I feel very sorry for her. It's time to reveal today's greatest Bristling Union jackass. Right then, Mark, I'll throw it over to you. Your greatest Britain, please.
I was super confident, nominated this before a ball was kicked. Gareth Southgate, never in doubt.
Never in doubt. OK, Gareth Southgate, that sans waistcoat as well. You said it was never in doubt. I mean, a lot of people were saying that he should have been sacked before this tournament and then throughout most of the tournament. But now here we are in the final.
So... had a little bit of luck, haven't we? An easy draw, but name on the trophy. We're getting these last-minute goals. We're just getting over the line. One more great performance, and that's it. First trophy since 66.
Look, we are... Well,
not first trophy since 66.
You know, because the women had a go, didn't they?
I don't watch women's football.
Exactly,
That's
good.
very interesting.
Right, now, James, who's your greatest Britain?
Well, in a shocking, diverse twist, I've gone for Harry Kane as my greatest Britain. Yes, I chose this at half-time. Obviously, you could also nominate Ollie Watkins, who scored the winner, but I'm going for Harry Kane because I think he had a difficult tournament, and it was great to see him break his duck and get the penalty, which got us 1-1.
Well, and he banished the penalty issue, didn't he, when he smashed it over the bar against the French. He's now slotted it into the bottom corner against the Dutch.
Well, he's now equal top scorer in the tournament.
It's almost like you got to watch it, Patrick.
It is. Well, actually, I did get to watch the first half, which was actually more annoying. You know what I mean? I am aware that I've got an orange time, which makes it look like I was supporting the Dutch. But yes, anyway. Right, so who's your greatest Britain, please?
Mine is Ptolemy Benson, who is bringing back the golden age of the wags. I would encourage you to just go Google her. She is the most beautiful woman I've ever looked at. And I love the... do you remember the Cheryl Cole period? Yeah. We love the glamour, we love the silliness, we love the potential infighting. Please bring it all back. Naughty's cool.
So for you, you've nominated, just so we're clear on this, we'll keep that picture on screen.
Because she's really fit.
Because you think she's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Is that not allowed?
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. I just wanted.
Do we hate beautiful women now?
I wondered if there was anything else. I wondered if there was some charity
I just think she's really, really attractive.
Star of Britain. I mean, who knows? You're not allowed to like.
Right, fine, OK. Well, I'm recently married, so not her, obviously, but Gareth Southgate. There we go. He's tonight's greatest Britain, which I kind of say to you, gritted teeth, but. You know what? Fair. We are in the final. Yeah. We're in the final, and there we are. Who's your Union jackass?
Oxford Action for Palestine.
Now we're back.
They have ended their sit-in protest in Oxford. They promised this would continue until human rights were protected in Israel. They've closed it down. Do you know why? Time to go on
'Cause it's
summer
summer.
holidays.
Yeah.
So here we stand.
They don't have anywhere to live in Oxford. They take their rooms back.
No other until it's time to go interrailing with your mates. Pathetic.
Can I just politely suggest they do have somewhere to live in Oxford? It's the tent that they've pitched outside the building, right? I mean, like, that's what it was.
As I said it, I heard myself go, they're camping.
They were literally living in a tent, but now interrailing is more important than the Gaza conflict.
People don't go interrailing anymore.
They're banned. They're banned from travelling to Europe.
No, it's just not 1980.
Off to a strong start. Go on, James.
I'm going to go for Clive Lewis, who upstaged Keir Starmer on a day he was at NATO summit for all the wrong reasons. So lock him in the tower.
Fair, lock him in the tower.
Strong.
OK.
If we're going to lock up anyone in this government, you know, let them out early.
Let them out. Well, this is it. They'll be out in...
Or just rehabilitate them. That's good too.
Yeah, exactly. Go on, Rebecca. Who's your...
Mine's Boris Johnson, who did a 10-point article about how to bash Labour, rather than perhaps suggesting that it might be good if Labour maybe fix the country, sort out the mess that he made. Not very public-spirited.
Not very public spirited. It's tribal, though, isn't it? But
Yeah.
yes, I do take your point. Right, tonight's winners of the Union Jackass are actually a bunch of people that I have met. It's the Oxford Action for Palestine group. Lovely bunch of people.
Met but not spoken to.
Met but not spoken to. I did speak to a few of them. It was the Cambridge lot that I didn't
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was good. I think they were pretty worried I'd outwit them, you know, with my intellect and everything. But yes, so no, they have decided to go home for the summer holidays, which shows how much they really care. Solidarity, everybody, with Gaza. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for tonight. Again, I'll re-emphasise, I'm really glad you got to watch the game. Thank you to everybody who turned over. And well done, England, as well. Headliners are up next, another group of people who also got to watch the England match earlier. So that's brilliant. So, yeah, I look forward to hearing more about that. They can give you a fuller analysis. I'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News and weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain will ease slowly but surely through tonight. However, it is going to be another cloudy day for most of us through tomorrow. That's because low pressure is very much in charge. We've got a northerly wind as well for some areas. That's bringing that particularly cool feel, particularly for the early part of July. So rain will persist for northeastern areas of Scotland as well as some northern areas of England, parts of Northern Ireland as well. But the rain is going to ease a little and we will lose that risk of thunderstorms through northern areas of England. Staying dry across the south, temperatures around 12 or 13 degrees as a minimum overnight. So a fairly mild start to the day. But as I said, where we do have that northerly wind across parts of Scotland, that's where it's going to feel quite cool through much of the day. Temperatures not climbing much higher than 13 degrees in Aberdeen by lunchtime, even 11 degrees to start the day. So there'll be little change from the morning into the afternoon. A brighter day, though, for Northern Ireland, western areas of Scotland. Cloud, though, thickening across parts of North Wales into the Midlands and across many southern areas. The cloud will start to build into the afternoon, but it should stay dry through much of the day across many southern areas. So here, that's where we'll see the warmest, the highest temperatures, the warm sunshine still pushing through across parts of the south into Wimbledon as well. It should be another dry day on Thursday. And there will be more in the way of sunshine for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland as well. Despite that northerly wind, temperatures still climbing to the mid-teens, possibly the higher teens for some parts of the central belt by Thursday afternoon. Looking ahead to Friday, we do see a risk of showery rain pushing up from the south and east, threatening the south coast. Further north,
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far and it could be yours. Phil was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox. I just looked at my account and thought, oh my God, yeah, it's true, it's gone into my account. And if I can win it, anybody can win it.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only.